Welcome to Gita Odyssey live session. Today is our fifth session, and today we are going to talk about one of the most important shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, Shloka number 7. If you personally ask me to pick top 10 shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the shloka. So let's pay full attention and we will try to explore this shloka from different dimensions, and obviously we can have a dialogue or Q&A at the end, because there is a lot of leadership lessons in this shloka. There is a lot of life lessons in this shloka, and this is such an important shloka and often overlooked. Nobody thinks this as a teaching, so that's why we wanted to pay some attention to that. And if you really look into our book, you can see a big commentary, a lot of multiple pages commentary on this particular shloka. So with that introduction, we can get started. I got some feedback that some of the slides are not very clear. Obviously, the slides are very clear on my side, but when Zoom actually repurpose it or degrades it, it may not be very clear. So please let me know if there is, meaning I try to reduce the number of slides. We are only showing the shloka because we want maximum attention, because if it is distracting people, we wanted to avoid it. So thank you for those feedbacks. And please let me know if there is any audio quality issues or any slide issues, the clarity issues, please let us know. Just some logistics. With that, we can get started. Thanks, Arnab, for that clarity, because I think that people, when they look at from the phone, that is where the challenge is happening. So probably that could be the reason. I don't know. Anyway, that's great. Let's get started. So we are getting into Shloka 7. But before that, Avanti, you wanted to recap? I always recap today. If you want to give a quick introduction, then we can get started. Whatever we covered so far.
Namaskar. So we are on chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. And as we have seen that Arjuna has not really come out of his despondency completely, but he is not as deluded as he was in chapter 1. You start seeing the first signs of recovery, and that is of primary importance. And we'll see that why it's important, especially in Shloka number 7. So if we just go from the start, it's verse 1 was where Sanjaya describes to Dhritarashtra and to all of us Arjuna's very pitiable sight. And though that sight looks very pitiable to us when we are looking at it, if we put our hand on our heart, we'll see that we are in that plight over the most useless things, most inconsequential things. This was such a huge battle he had to fight. But if you really look back upon your life and see what nonsense you have worried about and got yourself down to this particular position in life, you'll be appalled. You'll really be appalled. At least I was, whenever I keep looking back. And yes, in that moment, that whole, situation seems overwhelming and end of the world. Like kids say, it's so like, oh my God, this was the worst day of my life. Similar, so no day is the worst day, nothing compared to this. And yet we make it so. And then we see Krishna coming in and just speaking like 2 verses, which are only 2 verses, but very, very impactful. I call them the slap on the face or the shaking of the shoulder verses, where Arjuna is having such a huge tantrum. And sometimes even when we're dealing with kids, we see that when they're having such a huge tantrum, back in the day in India, we used to spank. Here it's not allowed, but anywhere abroad, it's not allowed. Anywhere in the world, it should not be done. But that's the kind of treatment that Arjuna needed, because he was just not making sense to himself also. He was in such a horrible state of, overpowering, overwhelming emotions. So Krishna shakes his shoulder, let's not say slaps his face, but shakes his shoulder to get him out of that delusion. Those were those 2 very beautiful verses, which I think we've covered quite in depth in the book as well, and also through these lectures. And then again, we have Arjuna coming back in chapter 4. And this is where, at least when I was studying the Gita, where my heart melted and where I identified with Arjuna. Because really, what makes us human are our emotions. And sometimes they put us, those emotions are so pure and so, though we call it attachment, they're very innocent to a point. And especially in this one or two verses that Arjuna says, that how can I, those people who are meant to worship, it's not just I love them or whatever. These people are meant to be worshipped. Bhishma, what a resume he had, as Dronacharya was his teacher. So he's like really pleading that I know that this is the right thing to do, but how do I do it? And that's when you really come down to Arjuna's plight and identify with him. Those were the last verses that we covered. And finally, just before this verse in chapter 6, um, the first time when Arjuna admits that I don't know. Up till now, he was giving that kind of he was projecting that I know what to do and this is what we should do. I know what to do and this is what we should do. He was continuously banging on that point. Whereas in verse number 6, just before this quintessential verse 7, he finally says, I'm not sure. And that I'm not sure is what marks the beginning of wisdom. And we'll see that completely exemplified in verse number 7. I hope that helps.
Thank you. So that's the introduction we had on whatever we covered so far. So let's move on. So as we saw, as Avanti rightly suggested, Arjuna was speaking intellectually. Arguments were more legitimate now. And this pivotal shloka, he understands that he is confused and he needs help. This marks the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's listen to the shloka first.
यदोषोपहतस्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यां निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् न.
If possible, try to remember this shloka. This is one of the top 10 shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita. If you are a seeker, this shloka is such an important shloka. So let's try to see the literal meaning, and then we are going to take each word and deep dive into that. Try to understand this rather than blindly believing in. So if you have any questions, let's discuss that later in the Q&A or over the chat or the next week. So he uses a technical term, karpanya doshaha upahataha subhavaha. He says, like, I was hijacked, my spiritual miserliness. That is the literal translation of the word karpanya. Karpanya literally means miserliness. In this particular context, spiritual miserliness has hijacked my wisdom. That's exactly what it. And I'm completely confused. Dharma sammudha chedasaha. Chedas means mind. Dharma sammudha means I'm completely confused about what is dharma. What needs to be done, what need not be done. I'm completely confused. Then he says, I need a mentorship. I need some guidance. So he says, I ask you, I request you, truly, what should I do? Guide me. Please tell me clearly. He says, Nishchitam brohitan me. I want clarity. More than certainty, I want clarity. I'll talk about that later. This is a very powerful leadership lesson. You can hear this in a lot of leadership talks modern days. A leader needs clarity more than certainty, because certainty is not in your hand. But if he is not clear what he is doing, that's a problem. So Arjuna specifically asked, tell me clearly. And then he tells, I am your student. Shishya teham. Shadimam tam prapannam. I seek your shelter. Please guide me. So you can interpret this in many ways. One is obviously an individual surrendering to a master like Krishna. Or in the modern world, we can seek guidance from a right mentor or a guru, it doesn't matter. Understand that we are confused. That itself is a big gift. And then seeking guidance is the right way of getting out of that problem. This is why this shloka, because of this message, this shloka is considered as one of the most powerful shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's quickly see at a glance what we are talking, and then we will deep dive into the message of the shloka. So this shloka, we are saying that this is one of the most revered shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. Because if this words were not coming from Arjuna, Krishna would not have given the Gita out. See, this act of humility and surrender, that made Arjuna worthy of receiving the Bhagavad Gita. This is what the beauty of this shloka. I am confused by the situational pressure and I am unable to see things clearly. And when you do not have clarity, when you do not have that clarity, seek guidance. So Arjuna here seeks Krishna's guidance. So now let's deep dive into the shloka. The first point is that Arjuna's surrender and request. First thing is, whenever we are in a problem, if you want to get out of that problem, there are certain things that needs to happen. First thing is that we need to realize that there is a confusion or a problem. A lot of times we don't even recognize that there is a problem. So realizing the presence of a problem is the step number one in solving a problem. Second thing is, if I do not have clarity, if I'm confused on how to approach the problem, accept that there is nothing wrong in that. None of us can solve all the problems around us. Situational pressure can put us can affect our ability to think properly. So there can be so many reasons. So the second step in problem solving is accept the confusion. If you are confused, accept that you are confused. Seek guidance or mentorship earnestly. This is the solution given out by the Bhagavad Gita. So realize the presence of a problem, accept my confusion, and seek the right mentor. This is very important. So in this shloka, you can see that Arjuna admits, my nature, he says, Sobhava. Sobhava means my nature, who I am. I'm a soldier, I can solve the problem. Is hijacked, upahataha. The word upahataha means hijacked by karpanya dosha, spiritual miserliness. Meaning, what is the nature of a miser? The definition of a miser is that somebody who has a lot of money, but he won't spend the money because spending the money is too sad. It's a pain for him. So he may have $1 million, but he live meaning basic necessities of the life he won't satisfy. Who needs to be blamed for? So like that, the scriptures tells you are blessed with that kind of human birth, because out of all the birth, human birth is that birth which gives you all the tools, techniques, and skills to know who you are, what you are. And if you're not utilizing that skill, if you're just running after only the worldly things definitely it is needed. But if you're only focused on the worldly things, and if you're not trying to understand who you are, and if you depart this world, you were like a miser. Look at, miser had enough money. He could have enjoyed so many things. He could have explored so many things, but out of choice, he didn't do it. Like that, we are blessed with so much tools, skills, intelligence, and capacities and situations. Yet, we fail to use it. And that is why the scripture talks about that as karpanya. We are going to deep dive a little bit more into that. What exactly is the reference of this? This is from the Upanishad. So we are going to talk a little bit more. But for the time being, understand that my intellect is hijacked by these spiritual miserliness. I am suffered with this karpanya dosha. Yes, I know that I have the skill to know the truth. I know the skill to know the dharma, but I cannot. And what is that? Prishchami tvam dharma sammuda chedasa. I'm complete, because of this karpanya dosha, I'm completely confused with what is right and what is not right. And then he tells, yes, Shreyat Sham Shishidam Bruvidan me. What is the right thing for me? What is the right thing? Shreyas. Again, a technical term. We need to deep dive into that. We will come to that. What right now, understand that what is the right thing for me, not the what is pleasant for me, right? So Arjuna clearly knows what is pleasant may not be what is good. So he asks his mentor Krishna, guide Krishna, teacher Krishna, please guide me. What is the right thing to be done in this situation? I am your disciple. I am completely giving myself for your mentorship. This is the high level meaning of the shloka. Couple of additional points. So, modern example. See, let's say that you are a startup entrepreneur. You are very confident initially, but after some time you get very much confused what is to be done. At that point of time, the successful entrepreneurs, what they do? They seek mentorship. Right now, AI has introduced into the corporate world. Most of the CEOs, most of the business people do not know. They didn't know what is the power of this AI. Wise people, what they do? They seek mentorship. I've seen many CEOs going to the schools or learning properly or approaching the right consultant. This is such an important matter. This is relevant even in the modern world. So that is what this shloka is very important. So the scriptures is, meaning our Sanatana Dharma scriptures are so powerful, right? It talks about a lot of different options. They talk about, in our scriptures, they talk about there are two types of confusions. First confused is, I am confused, but I don't know that I'm confused. Olden days, we used to drive, right? We drive and we lost the way. But if I don't realize that I lost the way, I don't seek help. Modern days, we have GPS and everything. But at that point of time, I still remember, like sometimes we used to pull over to a gas station and ask for directions. So what prompted me to stop at that gas station and ask for direction? Because I know that I'm confused. So this is very important. Very important. The point is that if it's okay for me to get confused, it is okay for me to get perplexed, but we need to develop some self-awareness that we are confused. This is number one. So two types of people. One is, there are people who are confused, but they don't seek guidance because they don't even understand that they are confused. And sometimes they understand that they are confused, but their ego will not let them to ask for guidance. So this is wrong. The scriptures tells the skill you need to develop is, when you are confused, you need to understand that you are confused. That is why clarity is emphasized more in Vedanta than the certainty. Because nobody can be certain. Everything is a projection. Future is yet to come. So, but clarity, what am I doing? Why am I doing? Why am I doing? If I am investing some money in the stock, it is not a random choice, but it is a conscious decision. Clarity is needed. Everything you do, you need to have that clarity. And when you don't have that clarity, when everything appears to be not very clear, seek mentorship and guidance. This is very important. So that two types of confusions we talked. Let's continue. The next point is that karpanya. So the word karpanya is, meaning loosely can be translated as spiritual miserliness. So it is a self-imposed limitation withholding you from exploring your potential. Imagine that you can score like 100, but if you're settled with 20, that is miserliness. Imagine that you can spend $100, but if you spend only $1, that is miserliness. Like that, you have the skill to know who you are. You have the skill to live a life of happiness and contentment, but we prefer to stay as little as possible. So this is what is defined by Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So one of the most popular Upanishad is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So in that Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 3rd chapter, 8th section, 10th shloka, this Karpanya is defined, and Krishna uses that technical term in the Bhagavad Gita. So in that shloka, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad tells, he who departs this world without realizing who he is and what is his true nature is and what is the true nature of the reality is, he is considered as a miser. So it says, Yova edaksharam gargi viditvasman lokat praiti sa kripanaha. I'm not complicating with Sanskrit. It means he who departs this world without knowing himself is a miser. This is the definition of Karpanya. Couple of more points before I hand over to Avanti. So then, first Arjuna said, I am confused. He admits his confusion. He seeks mentorships, and he admits that, yeah, I can know myself. I can live a better life. This state I can get out, but right now I am not able to do that. So all that points is given. And one term, he asked Krishna to mentor him and guide him, but with a clear request. He wants Krishna to mentor him in the path of Shreyas. That is another technical term. The word Shreyas is defined in the Katha Upanishad. So just a small pause, and we will, this we have covered in the first book and in the first course, the first step into Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is nothing but a summary of the Upanishads, right? So Krishna is not making anything new. Krishna is only summarizing, and that is why you can see Krishna is borrowing ideas, not borrowing, he is using the Upanishad vision to teach. So please keep that in mind. So let's understand what is Shreyas. The definition of the Shreyas is, Shreyas can be simply defined as the path of good. And opposite to Shreyas is the path of pleasant. It's not opposite. There is another path of pleasant. Sometimes, very rarely, the path of pleasant matches with the path of good. Then it is good. But if your path of pleasant is not meeting the path of good, then follow the path of good. That is what the Upanishad guidance. So it tells, Shreyascha Preyascha Manushyameda Tau Sambaditya Vivinakti Dhira Shreyo hi Dhira bhi Preyaso Pranide Preyo Mande Yoga Kshema Dinide. It means the wise choose the path of good, Shreyas, and the unwise chooses the path of pleasant. Simple example. Everybody know. Dining table. Path of pleasant is one thing. Path of good is another thing. So Arjuna is clearly telling Krishna, that is exactly what we need to tell to our mentor. What I want is the path of good. All these are leadership lessons. We will talk about that, or life lessons. We are going to talk at the end, but that is the next point. Shreyas over Preyas. Arjuna asked for Shreyas over Preyas. Continuing, right? So the next point is, he became a true seeker, especially in the path of spirituality, right? If you want to know the truth, you need to be a seeker. If you go to a teacher with arrogance, you won't learn. So in our scriptures, there are three types of learners are defined. The first one is Vidyarthi. Vidya means knowledge. Arthi means the one who is desiring to get the knowledge. That is what it means. The second category of students is known as Antevasi. Antevasi here means an engaged learner. So he attends but may not deeply absorb, but that is the second category. And the final or the highest level of student is known as Shishya. Shishya means the one who is committed to learning, one who is 100% committed in learning, and he seeks understanding deeply and apply that knowledge into the day-to-day lessons. So Vidyarthi may just remember things, Antevasi may go to a little bit more further, but that highest pyramid, those who are familiar with the Bloom taxonomy, right? There are different levels of learning. The first level is you understand. Second level is you try to, first is remember. Second is to understand. Third is analyze. Then finally, can you take that knowledge and apply to a different field? So that highest level of the student is Shishya. And what Gita is asking is, Arjuna used that term. Remember, each of these terms are very technical. It carries a larger meaning. It's not for a casual reading. So Arjuna tells, Shishyasteham. I want to be a Shishya, not just a mere Vidyarthi or even an Antevasi. I am committed. So please teach me. Without this, the Gita would not have happened. That is another point to highlight. The next one is one more point. Those who are familiar with the Sikh tradition, right? The word Sikh came from the Sanskrit word Shishya. The word Sikh is a Punjabi interpretation of the word Shishya. Means a disciple committed to knowledge. And that is the idea of Sikhism. And that is why you see in Sikhism, the gurus are highly respected. Even the scripture is known as Guru's Granth Sahib Ji. So the word Sikh came from the word Shishya, because a Sikh should be someone who is committed in spiritual knowledge. Just a small diversion, but an important point. Couple of more points. Then the thing is that for the material world, you can always get some good mentor. But selecting that mentor is so critical. If you select a wrong mentor, and if you are with some wrong company, it can be counterproductive, even in the material world. So we need to pay attention in selecting those mentors. It should be an uplifting mentors. At least the mentor should not have any hidden agenda. But in the world of spirituality, it is most difficult. The Upanishads gives us a clear guidance. Who is a guru or a teacher? In the spiritual path, Upanishad guides us. There are two qualifications mentioned. One is Shrotriya, the other one is Brahmanishta. The one who knows the truth, Brahman, the reality, one who is already established in his knowledge with the reality. That is number one. He should be speaking from his experience. Next is what? It's not that he has the knowledge or experience. Shrotriya means the ability to communicate. You might be the best person with all the experience, but if you cannot communicate that properly, effectively, that is useless. Look at the combination. You should have knowledge and you should be able to communicate. That is the guru. That is a mentor Upanishad wants. Krishna has both, but what is the problem with modern days? It's almost impossible to find a true spiritual guru. Only if you are lucky, you may come across one or two in a generation. Scripture gives an opportunity of alternatives. They say upagurus are there in the modern world. Upagurus means he may not be completely Brahmanishta, but he is committed to that. And my teacher Swami Dayananda used to say, the person without any agenda. That's it. If the teacher do not have any agenda, that is good enough in the modern times. So this is the quality of the guru. So, okay, so let me pause here and request Avanti to add her point, and then we can come back and talk about a little bit of management lessons and leadership lessons in this shloka.
Thank you, Rajesh ji. That was such an elaborate explanation. And before we come to management, I think, again, I have to say project self. Let's see how we can actually use this for ourselves, what we can do for our own being, how we can use the Gita for our good life. So I hope you all have brought the book. I can't keep saying this over and over again, but please get the book, because what Rajesh ji explains here just through slides and all is not even the tip of the iceberg of what is there in the book. The whole explanation of this word, I was blown away by it. I didn't know Karpanya, the depth of it, as beautifully as Rajesh ji has brought it in the book. You should read the commentary on that. And the beauty of this book is that all these Sanskrit terms, which seem so far-fetched, if you just look at it in the Upanishads, have been distilled. It'll become your regular vocabulary. I can't tell you how many times I use Karpanya in my, regular vocabulary. And that's how we start learning the true depth of the scriptures. So please get the book and read it. I'd like to reiterate what he said. Just think about it. Self-imposed limitation holding you back from your own potential. What better definition could there be to this word? And if you connect it back to the title of our book, Unlocking Human Potential, it is absolutely useless to be a human being if we have not locked the spiritual potential, which will not only fulfill that goal of self-realization, which Krishna says is far and few in between, once in a million lifetimes, but at least while we are on that path, we are living miraculous lives. Life becomes nothing short of a miracle. And when Rajesh ji asked, what's the point if we don't unfold the spiritual potential in us that will unlock the human potential? Shankaracharya has said it, but I want to say it again. Even Buddha said it, that one in a gazillion lifetimes, you're born a human being. In amongst those who are born, those few beings that are human beings, in that, to be born with everything intact, head to toe intact. Now, you can't say, no, but I'm not Mr. Universe or Miss Universe, or I'm not the strongest, or Michael Phelps or whatever. But everything is generally intact, enough to get us about. In that, there are few. From that, to even have a remote interest in the scriptures. Very, very, very rare. We think, we are just sitting, what is so rare? There are so many people, so many classes. It's very rare. Count the amount of human beings and count how many are sitting in this. In that, to come across this right mentorship that Rajesh ji has been, pounding on throughout what he was saying. Mentorship, even forget mentorship, even just the right book is very rare. And then to treat this whole subject, to treat these classes, to treat this whole scriptural exploration as a Vidyarthi is an absolute waste of time. It's an absolute, you might as well not spend. You might as well do something else that really makes you happy. But in this, process, if you can shift from that Vidyarthi mindset into a Shishya, that I need to understand this knowledge. I need to make a change in my life. I need to transform. It's one life. We all believe in the theory of reincarnation. We all believe in the theory of karma, whatever else. But what we know is just this one life. Shankaracharya says, if you don't use this one life, it is mahati vinashti, the greatest loss. What losses are we trying to ensure in our life? Our house, our car, our health, our bodies. None of this we're going to take with us. So to not approach this subject, I'm sorry, I'm so passionate about this, but if you've come to this, it's not by chance. Yes, this sounds interesting for an hour. and I've got goosebumps saying this. There's a long process of many lifetimes that you'll have gone through, that you'll have come to a revered text like the Gita. Don't let it be Mahati Vinashti. Use it as a shishya and really make a difference in your life. So that is about Karpanya. Now, when Rajesh was talking about Shreyas and Preyas, he said a very interesting line that you're very lucky if Shreyas and Preyas, what you like and what is good for you, is the same. It's rare, but you are very, very lucky when that happens. Now, in chapter 18, Krishna says that what is like nectar in the beginning, what is very pleasing in the beginning, becomes poison in the end. And what is very hard in the beginning becomes nectar in the end. For most of us, this is what it is. Okay. Now, when you look at Arjuna's situation, actually, as daunting as the whole situation seems, and we've heard Arjuna's plea from the bottom of his heart, if you look at it very closely, actually Shreyas and Preyas are coming together for him in this horrific battle that he has to fight. How, you may ask? Preyas is his basic Prakriti Swabhava. He is a warrior. He loves to fight. He loves to win. He enjoys being a king. And in that light, when Krishna tells him that whatever has to be, whatever the outcome of this war is already written, Arjuna, these people are already dead. You stand up, fight this war, win it. He doesn't stop there. And he says, enjoy the kingdom. So nobody is deluded that Arjuna does not like being king. So that is Preyas. All his attributes are Preyas. And what is good for him, Shreyas, is that he is fighting a righteous war. So when he fights the righteous war, he is going to fulfill his spiritual obligation as well, along with living out his human tendencies. Now, the only thing that is jarring in between over here is emotions, attachments. And that is what is holding Arjuna back in this whole situation. We'll look at this a bit more deeply in Shloka number 8. I'll explain that over there. Another thing I wanted to touch upon was the quintessential nature of this particular verse of chapter 2, verse number 7. Rajeshji's covered it very well, but I just want to say one thing is that when we approach any knowledge without humility, you're not going to get that knowledge. The sad part about our existence is I know everything. And world philosophies say there are 4 magic words. I do not know. If you can continuously say to yourself, I do not know, I do not know, I do not know, the amount your consciousness will expand to actually know and yet not know, that's the irony, is phenomenal. So Vidya and Vinaya go together. Knowledge and humility. To get Vidya, you have to have tremendous Vinaya, humility. And when you receive Vidya, it has to be married to Vinaya. So when you start getting knowledge also, you have to become more and more and more and humble. People keep asking, how do I know whether I'm spiritually progressing? This is one of the signs. That if you are spiritually progressing and you are becoming arrogant, you're on the wrong path. The more you spiritually progress, the more you will be on your knees. I've spoken about this even in the charity thing. That when we do charity, we should not be standing and doing charity. We should be on our knees and doing charity. That is spiritual progress. So very, very important, Vidya and Vinaya. Another thing is this necessity to empty yourself out. I've said this in one of the voice notes that I sent to Rashmi's question. We need to empty ourselves out before we receive anything. Right now, it's okay that we come over here with full minds, but we are looking at spirituality like a Panadol pill. I have all these problems. I come for a 1-hour lecture. I take the pill. I'm feeling great. I go back for 2-3 hours, 2-3 days, 1 week. I'm okay. By next week, again, I'm back to that. Again, I need the Panadol pill. So this is not how we should approach spirituality. When we take 1-hour class, We have to go through the week and empty ourselves with what we've learned. This is not necessary. This is not necessary. This is not necessary. The more you empty and come back, the more knowledge we are able to receive. So this verse is not only a lesson for teachers or therapists. It's even for us. How should we approach knowledge with an empty mind? Our mind should be less and less filled with emotions. And when we are handling emotional people, until that person comes, our child, our wife, our mother, our father, until they come to this, please guide me, beg you, please guide me, then you give your guidance. The word education comes from educere, which means to draw out. So we need to, provoke one's own knowledge from within. We don't need to keep telling people what to do. And Arjuna today, now at this point where he's come, he knows all this. Consistently, he will say, I know this, I know this, I know this. He knows all this. So when he is able to understand his own knowledge with Krishna's guidance and with that process of emptying himself out, becoming quiet, what he does will be more impactful and will come from a lot of conviction. So these are the few things that I wanted to touch upon. One last thing, yes. Like Rajesh said, this is a very important verse. There are some verses in the Bhagavad Gita which you should asterisk, underline, highlight, and learn by heart. And some of these verses can become your prayer. We say we don't know what to pray. They can become your prayer because they've already been blessed by the rishis and they've been already blessed with aeons and aeons and aeons of chanting. So this is one of my prayers, that when you do not know what to do, whatever the situation may be, I do not know whether to go right or left. I do not know whether I should say this, I shouldn't say this. I do not know whether I should leave this job or stay in this job. I do not know how I should handle my child. I do not know whether I should stay in this marriage or not. Whatever your question, I promise you this. If you sit with this, chanting this over and over and over and over and over again at your altar, whether in your dream, whether through a book, whether through somebody just saying it, whether in a class, you will get the solution. When Mahatma Gandhi used to, what he did, right? I think everybody knows that. When he used to have a problem, he used to hold the book and then he used to randomly open and he used to get his answer. But to expedite that process, if you use some of these verses, we'll keep marking out these asterisk verses throughout our series. Make them your prayers. They're actually prayers. And if you chant them exactly how they have been said in the Bhagavad Gita, you will get your answer. Krishna will come alive. There will be a solution to your problem. Thank you.
Excellent. So we will continue. So just one more point. The approach of mentorship in Vedanta, especially, is genuine interest is needed. It's not a preaching. It's not just going and preaching something to all. So there is a Sanskrit shloka which tells, teach when the student approaches, when the student have faith, and when the student is received. Unsought advice. It's like crying in the wild, in a forest. If you cry in a forest, nobody will listen. So like that is the approach we can see always in Vedanta. So that's one thing. And then let's quickly recap the leadership lessons, because this shloka has a lot of leadership lessons. The first one is like embracing humility as a strength, because the humility is not a weakness. So here Arjuna's admission of confusion highlights the humility, and it is essential for effective leadership. See, modern leaders, every mentorship program you can listen, right? It tells recognize their limitation. A leader is great when he or she recognizes their limitation, remain open to input from others, and seek guidance whenever necessary. As I said, like a corporate leader, seeking guidance on artificial intelligence nowadays by bringing experts or attending a course. That's a good example. So this humility is a strength. The second leadership lesson we can highlight from this shloka, or the life lesson we can highlight, is clarity over certainty. So most of the times we faced with ambiguity. So here what Arjuna seeks is clarity rather than simplistic solutions. So it is very important to seek clarity. That is what, because sometimes it may not be full clear, but I should have clear understanding. What am I doing instead of random steps? Then the third point is sometimes every crisis, you can transform that crisis into an opportunity. Here, Arjuna's crisis, what happened? Because of his act, this crisis became a catalyst for a very transformative growth for himself and through him, millions of people around him. So, effective leadership is you always try to transform a crisis into an opportunity. This is a classic example. Then the fourth leadership lesson or the life lesson is choosing your mentors wisely. Because Arjuna's conscious decision to choose Krishna, that is very important. Even in the modern days, the type of mentor you choose, it's very important. Otherwise, it can be completely counterproductive. And then the next leadership lesson is distinguish between the immediate gratification versus the meaning longer benefit, Shreyas versus Preyas. Sixth point, the courage to seek help. It's not easy because it is very difficult for a person to admit that I'm confused. So acknowledging one's own confusion or challenges and courage to ask for help, they say that it is authentic leadership. So that is courage, meaning courage to help. And then importance of receptivity and readiness. Readiness meaning for listening to others and readiness to learn from others. That is very important. So these are some of the 7 leadership lessons you can extract from this shloka. One more point. So this, you think that this is unique to Gita? No. This idea of understanding the confusion, seeking guidance, it's there in almost all the scriptures of the world. For example, the Dhammapada, Bhagavan Buddha say, like, should one find a wise man who points out you to the right direction, let him follow, meaning such a wise person, and meaning avoid the confusion. So this is Dhammapada, the Buddhist scriptures. So like Arjuna, meaning Buddha, Bhagavan Buddha is highlighting the importance of seeking mentorship. So this is there in Sikhism. This is there in Christianity. For example, Bible, you can see Matthew's book in New Testament. I believe that it is in the 7th chapter. It says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek, you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. So this is very important. Asking questions, asking for guidance, that's very important. This is what Bible also highlights. So the common theme of almost all the scriptures is, all the scriptures in the world highlight humility, importance of humility and surrender, especially in the spiritual matters, surrendering to a higher power and seeking wisdom and guidance. Every scriptures, without fail, highlights. Mentorship and learning is highlighted by almost every scriptures. And trust and faith, that is also highlighted. So with that, we can quickly recap. So we said there is a contextual shift in this particular shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna transitions from like intellectual arguments and he understood his confusion and he seek guidance. So dharma sammudha cheta, that is the term used, and also karpanya dosha is highlighted. And we talked about the 3-step path out of a crisis. First one is recognizing the problem. Second one is acknowledging my confusion, if there is, and seeking mentorship. That is the 3-path solution. And we talked about what is karpanya dosha, spiritual miserliness, holding back that inner wisdom and potential when I can use it. So this is very important. And we talked about by quoting this from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And we understood Arjuna's request to guide him in the path of Shreyas. So here we paused and we tried to see the meaning of the word Shreyas and Preyas from Katha Upanishad. And we tried to understand the true meaning of Shishya, comparing with the other type of learning like Vidyarthi, Antevasi, etc. And the importance of being Shishya. And finally, we talked about the right, understanding the right membership. And finally, we listened some of the management and life lessons we get from this shloka. And we closed the discussion by comparing the similar thoughts in some other scriptures, including Dhammapada, Bible, and we already talked about the importance of Shishya in the Sikhism. That's what we wanted to cover. And obviously, we will close with our, we talked about this, the quote. So the first step to clarity is the humility to seek it. This is very important.